You need to hear about this orthodontic beef between two of the most famous orthodontists in history that's still going on today and may have affected your face. Edward Angle, he's the father of modern dentistry. He never believed in removing teeth. Every tooth mattered. His whole thing was, if you work with the teeth and the jaws properly, you can get a perfect smile and retain facial beauty without ever having to pull anything out. He mentored this guy, Charles Tweed, who was his favorite student. Originally, Tweed followed Angle's advice, but after a few years, he was like, actually, this doesn't work. Dr. Angle is talking BS. Tweed noticed that a lot of Angle's treatments weren't holding up over time. Teeth would relapse and went back to being crowded. We'll get to the why that happened in a bit. So Tweed started removing teeth to make more space, and he showed his results and he was like, you see, no relapse. Now here is where it gets spicy. Angle hated this. He said pulling teeth was ruining people's faces. It made them look recessed and hollow, especially around the mouth. He was like, Charles, you think that looks better than that? Tweed was like, Angle was like, are you serious? Tweed was like, Dr. Angle? She fine. And then, sadly, Edward Angle died. It genuinely seems that Tweed's personal aesthetic taste favoured recession, and his extraction philosophy basically took over. Extractions became super common, and orthodontists were pulling out healthy teeth left and right to follow Tweed's principles. And that right there caused a shift in what dentists thought that their job was. Angle was about retaining facial beauty. Tweed was like, our only job is to straighten teeth. Tweed was now the top dog, and he was quite forceful. His philosophy completely took over. Everyone fell into line. Many, and I've got to stress this next bit, but not all, dentists ever since have followed Tweed's philosophy. They've operated from this reduced remit. It's not about facial beauty, it's about keeping teeth straight. This is Dr. B.F. Duell. He thought mass extractions were being way overused, and he saw that they were harming people's facial aesthetics. He described extraction orthodontics as mutilation. Now, if you think that word sounds a bit harsh, let's find out what a jury in America thought. In 1986, Susan Brim sued her orthodontist for excessive tooth extractions, which caused extreme jaw pain and caused her face to become sunken and less attractive. She essentially said, jury, my orthodontist removed healthy teeth and mutilated my face. And guess what? The jury agreed and awarded her $1.3 million. The American Association of Orthodontics were taking worried calls from patients left and right. Does this mean I shouldn't have my teeth pulled? They replied, no, unique case, uninformed jury. But when they weren't answering phone calls, they were making phone calls to dentists. They were saying, Doc, slow down on the extractions. And dentists listened. In the 1970s, extractions were involved in up to 60% of all treatments. After this case, that dropped down to 25%. But here's where it gets wicked. The AAO paid for research articles that stated the, quote, jaw joint has nothing to do with the teeth. These commissioned and paid for studies are required reading for every American dental student as of 2023. This study disproves the studies that the AAO commissioned and paid for. It says removing premolar teeth changes the movement and position of the lower jaw and may cause TMD. The Susan Brim jury told us what many orthodontists don't. You can damage beauty and you can damage health when healthy teeth are pulled unnecessarily. Here are two facts. One, beauty is caused by the maxilla, which houses the upper teeth, and the mandible, which houses the lower teeth, growing forwards and wide. Two, braces do not promote forwards growth, and sometimes they retract teeth backwards, especially when extractions are involved. Pulling teeth backwards is exactly what retractive braces do. When a child's face is growing, if you apply braces, even if they don't pull the jaws back, they limit the forward growth of those jaws when the braces are applied. The net result of that is that faces become recessed. If you extract some teeth and you pull the surviving teeth backwards, you see very recessed faces. This is awful for facial development. Faces end up concave, the airway becomes tiny instead of broad, and then you're increasing the risk of sleep apnea, which can take up to 20 years of someone's life. Tweed's reason for extractions in the first place? To reduce the chance of relapse. As braces prove, applying light pressure over time can move the teeth. They also cause the bones that hold the teeth, the maxilla and the mandible, to change their growth patterns too. Modern dentists insist on people wearing nightly retainers so that their teeth do not relapse to pre-brace positions. But have you ever wondered why? Because mouth posture, chewing and eating forces, and swallowing patterns are rarely corrected by dentists. Here's what we know. Correctly applied mouth posture, eating forces, swallowing, and to a lesser extent body posture, nudge teeth into their correct positions and allow for optimal development of the jaws. People with perfect teeth who have never had braces almost always have perfect mouth posture, excellent eating habits, the ideal swallow, and their body posture is pretty close to optimal. Here are the tongue positions for different types of occlusion: perfect, slight crowding, progressive crowding, deep or open bite, and underbite. Good mouth posture is tongue position, lip seal, and the teeth ever so lightly touching. So when someone has, for example, a deep bite and their tongue habitually rested between these teeth here before braces move the teeth into their correct position, and the tongue still rests here afterwards, that person risks relapse. The same forces that cause deep bite in the first place exist after the teeth are moved too. Let's talk about health. The most important thing anyone does from 1 minute to the next is breathe. When your jaws are held back or pulled back by braces, the airway becomes squeezed. A broader airway is healthier. A tiny airway is dangerous. We've already covered how dangerous sleep apnea is. There does exist airway-focused dentists who work on making the airway bigger, and the work they do is fantastic. But should we need dentists in the first place? We didn't used to. Daniel Lieberman wrote, quote, "Orthodontists and dentists were rarely necessary in the Stone Age. The skull record of people before agriculture has virtually no example of people who have recessed jaws, who have crooked teeth. This is an issue of modern civilization, and this is an environmental inheritance that we are passing on to the next generations. Prevention is better than cure. Parents should instill and enforce these 4 direct forces between birth and adulthood, and these 4 indirect forces. People in the Stone Age naturally fulfilled all of these obligations for perfect facial development. When we do instill those things, the dentists who have done a bad job in some of us won't be in a position to do a bad job for our kids. You can read the exact step-by-step methods of those 8 tenets in the first 56 pages of my book, Beauty Potential: How Facial Beauty is Retained or Lost. It's available on your local Amazon site. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. As for the argument, Tweed, I think, was wrong. It's never a good idea to pull healthy teeth.